Hello and welcome. Before you continue, do be aware that I sometimes discuss sensitive or uncomfortable topics in my videos as they relate to the books I am reading or writing. Please take a moment to view any content warnings in the description. Thank you! There is a non-zero chance that you have arrived at this video after watching my review of The Haunting of Hill House, the classic haunted house novel by Shirley Jackson. In that video, I stated that while I very much enjoyed the Haunting of Hill House miniseries by Mike Flanagan on Netflix, so much so that it inspired me to seek out the source material, I did not feel like the miniseries was at all an accurate representation of the source. So if you, like me, were looking for a book that captured the same intrigue and atmosphere of the Hill House miniseries, you've found it. Welcome, my lovely rose garden, to Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. Published in 2020, this haunting novel follows the journey of Maggie Holt to uncover the truth about the night her family fled Baneberry Hall 25 years ago, which inspired her father to write a hit tell-all book, House of Horrors, that put their family's name, and Baneberry Hall, on the map, for better and worse. After Maggie's father passes away, his final words a warning for her not to return to Baneberry Hall, Maggie is surprised to find that he never sold the house, and it now belongs to her. With a healthy dose of skepticism, Maggie arrives to prepare the house for resale and search for clues, all the while something more than the legacy of her father's book may be looming in the shadows. This story is told through a remarkably fun split perspective. I am a big fan of story within a story tales, and Home Before Dark features both Maggie's expedition to Baneberry Hall and chapters from her father's book, which may or may not accurately represent the happenings of 25 years ago. I prefer this to having a true time skip back to Mr. Holt's perspective, since neither the audience nor Maggie knows how much of the book is actually true and how much was exaggerated or made up whole cloth to entice readers and talk show tours. The book within a book builds a sense of foreboding and also heightens the mystery around what's true, what isn't, and what lies somewhere between. I love how this presentation of the story through the practical eyes of Maggie, who is mostly convinced that the book is pure fiction, and the book that seeks to present itself as fact, calls upon the reader to choose who they believe. I adore it when a book is able to become a truly interactive and immersive experience that involves the reader in the telling of it. As someone who does believe in ghosts, I likely had a different experience than someone who firmly does not believe in the supernatural. My own beliefs informed my reading, as they do with every book, but the wonderful thing about Home Before Dark is that it knows that and uses that to pull the reader along, whether you believe Maggie or her father. Surprisingly, the rest of the cast of characters were pretty memorable and really added to the world of the book. Oftentimes in stories like this, the conflict and horror is so centered on the protagonist that the other characters feel like set dressing. But the fact that these characters were used as set dressing in House of Horrors is actually relevant to their interactions with Maggie. These people have been reduced to the extras in her family drama for years, despite having their own very complex feelings about what happened at Baneberry Hall and its place in their local history. Quite a few are not happy about what House of Horrors did to the town and their own lives. I know it's pretty early on in the video to enter spoiler territory, but unfortunately with a book like this, any information about Maggie's investigation is going to give away a lot of what ultimately happens. There are definitely twists and red herrings, but even mentioning them without a spoiler warning could possibly give away too much. I do strongly recommend Home Before Dark, especially if you liked The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix or are a fan of horror that is possibly supernatural, possibly mundane, but definitely sure to keep you up as you flip the pages to find the truth. And as it turns out, Home Before Dark will be getting its own adaptation this year, which I am very excited about. That is your warning to click away. But before you go, please do consider liking this video if you've made it this far, and subscribing for more content like this. You can also support my content by purchasing my books, becoming a patron, or donating on Ko-fi. Links are in the description. Alright, I won't beat around the bush any longer. The final reveal of what happened the night that the Holt family fled Baneberry Hall kicks ass, because it comes in multiple parts and reveals that the story behind House of Horrors was ultimately driven by two young parents in over their heads, doing what they felt they had to do to protect their daughter. Let's back up a bit. When the Holt family moves into Baneberry Hall, young Maggie develops imaginary friends who seem potentially sinister. Strange things keep happening around the house, like lights turning on seemingly by themselves, and the Holts moved in directly after a murder-suicide had taken place in the house, which had a history of being kind of creepy anyway. All of this makes for quite the ripe fruit for picking in terms of crafting a horror narrative, which is exactly what Maggie's father does to protect her from the truth. Because the truth, devoid of any supernatural scapegoats, is even worse. The Holts were not alone at Baneberry Hall. It came with a groundskeeper and a housekeeper who lived down the hill and who had kept up the home for some time. Mrs. Dittmer, the housekeeper, had two daughters, one of which babysat for Maggie one night, the same night that the family fled, with Petra Dittmer nowhere to be found afterward. Maggie's parents left everything behind in the house because when they arrived home, it appeared to them that Maggie had pushed her babysitter over the banister and killed her. Whether it was an accident or not didn't really matter. A girl was dead and their daughter the only possible suspect. So they ran away and made up the haunted house story to cover up for why they left so suddenly, and also so Mr. Holt could sell the story and make money since they had just sunk everything they had into buying Baneberry Hall. They disposed of the body, and this is why Mr. Holt never sold the house. He never wanted anyone else to go poking around with renovations and discover the body of Petra Dittmer, which is, of course, exactly what happens when Maggie starts renovating. But this begs further questions. Did Maggie kill Petra? If so, was it an accident? And we get our second reveal. No, she did not. Her imaginary friend wasn't so imaginary after all, but rather Mrs. Carver, the wife of the former owner, who had taken to living within the crawlspace of the house following her husband's murder-suicide that took both him and their daughter. Mrs. Carver shows up pretty early on into Maggie's investigation as someone who presumably lives in town, so it's not immediately obvious to the reader that she still might be hanging around much closer to the site of her family's demise. She was the one who killed Petra that night, when Petra spotted her while babysitting and threatened to call the cops. Maggie tried to tell her parents what happened, but they thought that she was rambling on about an imaginary friend. They had no idea that there was someone else living in the house the entire time they were there, someone who continued to live there for years after they left. Hauntings that turn out to be people living in the walls sure has become a hot trope, hasn't it? But I'm not complaining. The build-up of the reveal and the pieces of it that are spread throughout the book make it a page-turning experience. I was on the edge of my seat wondering if Mr. Holt had killed Petra and fabricated the story of House of Horrors to cover it up, an idea that, much like House of Horrors, is rooted in both fact and fiction. He did write the book to cover up a murder, just not one that he or Maggie had committed. And when the truth does eventually come to light, it is Maggie's turn to write the next chapter in the history of Baneberry Hall, having at last reconciled with her past and her parents, ready to step into a future that she defines for herself. I absolutely recommend Home Before Dark, and I will likely be picking up Riley Sager's other books as well because I thoroughly enjoyed the writing style of this one, and I really, really do think that it is a worthwhile entry into the modern horror canon. So do pick this one up, especially if, like I said, you did like Haunting of Hill House on Netflix, or if you happen to see this after watching the new series for Home Before Dark that comes out and you're interested in the book. Definitely read it. It was an astounding read from start to finish, and definitely one of my new favorites.